Shock. No, I couldn't do this anymore. That's it, Alex. We're done, I said loudly and shoved my loser boyfriend. Then, proudly raising my head, I turned around and left the cafe where we were planning to celebrate our anniversary. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Alex angrily throwing flowers on the floor. You might think that I am just an unfeeling monster, but, well, who would have liked that kind of relationship? My now ex-boyfriend couldn't give me anything except vanilla nonsense. We hardly ever went to the movies, ate out only a few times in a year, and he never bought me anything. When I watched my friends' relationships, I recognized mine was terrible, and I wondered why. Because my partner was impoverished, and now I'm going home disappointed and upset because I bought him the video game he'd been wanting for a long time for our anniversary. And what did he do with it? He made a reservation at a cafe and ordered all the cheapest meals, as well as bringing me some really vile-looking daisies. I've had it. He was constantly telling me that he had no money, that his family was in a difficult situation, that everything would definitely change. Alex has been telling me about his financial situation for a whole year, but nothing has changed yet. Not only did he not give me gifts, but he also barely spent any time with me. You see, his family always had urgent business for him. Alex would constantly up and leave whenever they asked, and then disappear for several days. He didn't even call or write first. I didn't pay attention to it, but then it started to wear on me. Alex said that it was difficult for him to be caught between me and his family because his parents were in a tight spot. I put up with it for a while, but then we had a big fight and broke up for the first time. I expected him to apologize by bringing me gifts, like my friends' partners, but instead he simply wrote apologies, praises, and instant messages, added emoticons, and then practically swamped my inbox with love letters. I forgave him because it was pleasant, and now we've broken up for the second and final time because I'm sick of his poverty. I'm not particularly sad about it. After all, I'm one of the most popular ladies in school, and I'm sure I'll find a much better love soon. This time, though, I won't be looking at his inner traits. Instead, I'll be looking at his pocketbook. But who would have guessed that my ex would ascend to become the coolest person in school so quickly? If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed in this fairy tale. Do you know what happened? He became unbelievably rich overnight. There was a real commotion at school because a lot of people knew Alex as a quiet and sweet guy who didn't stand out at all. At one point, this is exactly what attracted me to him. And then he started wearing expensive clothes. He replaced his old smartphone with an exclusive version of the iPhone. And even his attitude suddenly changed dramatically. He became more confident in himself and even began to smile more often. The girls started hanging all over him and giving him all kinds of attention. I was burning with jealousy. It was so unfair. Why, as soon as we broke up, did he suddenly become so rich and popular? And how did he do it? I really wanted to find out, but I felt weird about going up to him and asking him anything. I did a very ugly thing to Alex when I broke up with him right in the cafe on our anniversary. But then an incident brought us together. When I was walking home after school, Craig, the school football team's captain, intervened. He's been after me for a while and has made it apparent that he wants to be my boyfriend. But I've never liked Craig, which I told him, and he didn't like that response at all. Not for the first time. He grabbed my hand and yanked me close to him, telling me that I would be his girlfriend, whether I wanted it or not, and that I should let go. You should let go of her. From behind us, we heard a voice. Alex was the one. He confidently strode up to Craig and punched him in the face. Without further ado, Craig was knocked to the ground, but he did not retaliate. Alex was practically off limits to guys like Craig now that he was so wealthy. Alex hugged me and asked if I was all right. At that moment, I was so confused that I couldn't even find the right words. I felt giddy around him more than I'd ever felt before. I was insanely embarrassed and said that I was fine. Alex smiled and made an unexpected offer. He invited me to the coolest restaurant in our city. So naturally, I didn't refuse. I had a wonderful evening with him. And then Alex ordered a limousine and we drove around the city for a long time. It was the most magical date of my life. I liked this kind of Alex better. He was generous, gallant, didn't skimp on gifts, and constantly took me out. Once Alex ordered a helicopter and we went to the top of a mountain where there was a dinner laid out on a table with musicians and a vase full of lush flowers already waiting for us. I couldn't believe my eyes. I even photographed this miracle and posted it on Instagram with a caption. My boyfriend is a millionaire. Jealous? At dinner. I asked how he got so rich so fast. Alex replied that his parents' business was finally taking off. They had tried to enter a larger market for many years, but they often failed and ended in debt. In the last year, even Alex had to come up with a business plan with his parents to earn money for food, and all that work paid off in full. I wasn't helping them for nothing, Alex said proudly, and I felt insanely ashamed for sulking over him working for his parents before. When we were on our way home, Alex suddenly asked me if I would have started dating him again if he hadn't become rich. Of course, I lied to him and said that I regretted breaking up with him. On the very first day, he was happy to hear this, and in my head, I was already imagining what luxury gifts he would shower me with, where we would celebrate my birthday, and where we would go for vacation in the summer. But my plans collapsed overnight. After a fantastic week with Alex, he revealed that his parents had been duped and that they would have to return all of the money or permanently close the firm to fix the problem. I wasn't thinking about my boyfriend's feelings at the time. Instead, I was thinking about myself and how much of a mess this would be for me. I could see how ashamed he was. But when he asked me to return the iPhone he had given me, he reddened even more. I'm sorry, but this will benefit my family. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it if you could return it. Of course it bothers me. Why was it necessary for me to return the items he had given me? I gently explained to Alex that it was indecent for him to ask for this, that a real man would find a way out of the situation without asking, and then he started whining and complaining. He said that he was to blame for everything because he accidentally got his parents mixed up in a scam that he needs to somehow get out of, and that he needs help and support. I dismissed all of it. I hate whiners. I just replied that he should stop sniffling so much about it. I was actually ashamed of him. Yesterday, he was a self-confident millionaire, and now he was back to being an ordinary guy in silly clothes with an old smartphone and that same unbearable whining. Alex just nodded his head and left, and I exhaled in relief. Finally, some peace and quiet. But the thought of having to listen to Alex again at school the next day infuriated me. However, I was taken aback when he arrived at school in a Porsche and exited wearing a high-end suit. I couldn't figure out what was going on. He couldn't even afford a sandwich in the cafeteria the day before, and now he was driving such a pricey car. I wanted to approach him and ask him everything, but his guard shoved me away. I declared angrily, I'm truly his girlfriend. The guard simply stated flatly that Alex had ordered them to keep me away from him. What? How could he be so cruel to me? When I looked in his way, he grinned blissfully and went inside, carrying all of my feelings with him. I started thinking hard about what had happened. After a long time, it dawned on me how he had become so dramatically rich again. I realized that it was a trick. Of course, Alex was testing me. I lied and said that I would date him under any circumstance, and when he allegedly lost all of his money, I instantly lost interest in him. I was such a naive fool. How could I fall for such a trick? Well, okay. Since he was treating me so cruelly, he was an idiot, and I don't date jerks. But at the same time, it was really unpleasant to see Alex spend so much time with a mousy honor roll student. I just couldn't understand what he saw in her because she paled in comparison to me. So despite him, I also started dating someone. In front of everyone else, everything was perfect. We held hands and walked to and from school together, and he gave me chocolates. But he was such a narcissist that I quickly started to feel sick. He was fixated only on himself, his problems, and his appearance. And at some point, I began to miss the sensitive Alex, his touching letters, ridiculous daisies, and endless support. When I was sick, he always came to visit me and spend a lot of time at my house. And when I failed a test, he sat and studied with me a lot so I would be able to pass it the next time. But because of my materialism and demands, I didn't notice his kindness, and I felt so sad. I realized all my mistakes and stupid behavior. Why did it take me so long? Alex was now dating another girl who probably gave him what he wanted from me: attention, care, tenderness, and love. And I was left with nothing. But despite this, I still decided to apologize for everything. I wrote him a long letter, apologizing for my mistakes and strange behavior. I didn't even ask him to go out with me, as I understood that it wouldn't happen. I put the letter in his mailbox. I only hoped he just wouldn't rip it up. The next day he came up to me. I was so happy to see him that I smiled broadly. Alex sat down next to me and said that there could be nothing between us because it was still difficult for him to trust me. But if what you wrote is true, then in the future you will definitely meet a good guy, and I will be happy for you. I just nodded. I really didn't want to stop talking to Alex, and neither did he. Even after all the cruel things I said, after a little time, he was able to forgive me, and we began to talk again. But as friends, and we had a lot of fun together. Alex noticed how I had changed, and who knows? Maybe he will ask me out again. Would you date a poor guy? Write your answers in the comments, like the video, and share it with your friends.
A gigantic monster stomps across the land, with nothing able to stop its rampage except for, "Come and eat," cries out a voice, and the monster suddenly stops and falls to the side. The child picks up his toy and runs back to where his mother and father have spread out a picnic lunch. As they eat, the boy asks his father about the nearby buildings, a series of 6 identical structures, each of which is a small rectangular building with a satellite dish on top of it. The weathered buildings look like they have been out here for some time, and the father tells the boy that he isn't exactly sure what they are or what their purpose is, but that they were probably built during the war. "What war?" the young boy asks. "The Pacific War," his father answers. "What was that?" "It was a war fought by many countries of the world." "Why did they fight?" the boy asks. "Well, there were a lot of reasons." "What were some of the reasons?" The father has played this game many times before, and he knows if he doesn't end this line of questioning now, that he'll never be able to eat his lunch. The mother, sensing the same, tells the boy that if he wants to, he can go and play with his toy some more. The boy doesn't need to be given the option again. He quickly gets up and grabs his toy monster before running off to play. "Don't go too far," his mother calls out as she watches her son head in the direction of one of the buildings. The boy stops in the shadow of one of the large satellite dishes and sits down in the grass to resume his monster's path of destruction across the countryside. As the monster moves through the tall grass, though, the shadow he is sitting in suddenly starts to shift. The boy looks up to see that the satellite dish on top of the building is moving. With a groan, it begins to turn and change its angle. And it isn't just the one on the building closest to him that's moving. He can see that each of 6 satellite dishes are doing the same thing. They're all turning to point towards the same spot on the horizon. The boy squints in the sunlight and sees what they're all now directed towards. Off far in the distance is a real monster. It's a massive-looking creature, a huge half-fish, half-lizard, covered in scales and spiky fins. It must be at least 50 meters tall or more, and it's coming straight towards him. The boy can already hear the sounds of its giant webbed feet stomping and shaking the ground. As it gets closer, its high-pitched shrieks and cries become audible too. Adding to the cacophony, an air raid siren begins to wail, followed by the sounds of gunfire, the marching of hundreds of boots, and the roar of engines. The boy looks around, but he doesn't see any of it. It's just him, the buildings, and the monster. The boy can't run though. He's frozen in fear. All he can do is watch as it swipes at trees and power lines, knocking them down with ease, all while getting closer and closer. The satellite dishes finally finish their slow alignment, and there's a loud humming noise, followed by a loud cracking sound as each one emits a bright beam of electricity at the monster. The creature stops its assault and howls in pain as the 6 satellites focus their beams on it. The beams disappear and the monster appears stunned, but then it looks up and continues to come forward, this time even faster than before. The monster is only hundreds of feet away now, and the boy doesn't know what to do. He's too scared to even scream for help. He closes his eyes and starts to cry when he's abruptly lifted into the air. The boy opens his eyes to see that it's his father. He picks up the boy and starts to run as fast as he can. The boy can see over his father's shoulder, and the monster has not changed its course to follow them. It seems to still be focused on the building he was playing next to. The monster finally reaches the building and begins swiping at it, tearing it apart as other satellites slowly realign, all pointing at the creature once again. The sound of the invisible army increases, and the monster reels as if it was struck by an unseen weapon. It suddenly rears back in pain as an artillery shell appears just feet away from it before exploding in the creature's face. But nothing seems able to deter it, and it keeps clawing at the building with the satellite dish. The father finally reaches the mother, who grabs the boy and embraces him tightly. There is a loud noise, and the family turns to watch as the monster finishes destroying the building and turns its attention to one of the others. But then the dishes unleash another blast of electricity at it with a thunderous crack. The creature howls in pain as it stumbles and falls to its knees. It is struggling to get up when yet another blast hits it and it falls to the ground. It breathes a couple of final laboured breaths before it closes its eyes, its enormous tongue lolling out of its mouth. The creature is finally dead. A loud celebratory cheer goes up in the empty field from what sounds like hundreds of people as the creature begins to slowly fade from view before eventually disappearing completely. Meanwhile, all the family can do is stare in amazement at the bizarre scene they have just witnessed. The extremely strange events that have just befell this average family may sound like the plot of a movie, and in some ways it was, because this is SCP-2954, also known as Looping Kaiju Killing. SCP-2954 is an anomaly that consists of several distinct components. The first, SCP-2954-1A, are the 6 large structures that resemble buildings with satellite dishes, which are located near a now deserted rural town in Japan. The word resemble is very important because these are not actual satellite dishes, but instead appear to be nothing more than facsimiles of real ones. The interior of the SCP-2954-1A buildings lack all of the mechanical components one would expect to find inside, and instead contain only a crude rope and a pulley system, which control the satellite dishes on the building's roof. Despite their lack of internal machinery, the satellite dishes are nonetheless somehow capable of discharging powerful electric arcs of energy, which they can only do when confronted by an SCP-2954-2, for instance. SCP-2954-2 refers to creatures which have a mix of reptilian, amphibious, and fish-like traits. They are always 50 to 60 meters in height, and most of their body is smooth and blue-grey in color, except for their scaled underbellies, which are red. Both their back and forearms have large spiny fins, and SCP-2954-2 instances walk upright on 2 legs, though they are always hunchback. Their mouths are always open agape, and are capable of spitting a highly corrosive liquid. These creatures appeared during a period of time that have been designated as Subaraya events. These events, which start every 7 days, consist of a single instance of SCP-2954-2 manifesting near the SCP-2954-1A buildings before it begins destroying its surroundings. The buildings will then activate, turning their attention on the creature and firing their electric arcs at it as it attempts to stop its rampage. This will cause SCP-2954-2 to focus its attention on one of the buildings, which it will then try to destroy. As it does so, the sounds of weapons being fired, vehicles moving, and orders are being shouted. This Phantom Army, which has been designated as SCP-2954-1B, is only heard, not seen, and there are never any physical signs of their fight, save for the creature's own reactions to the weapons and the occasional artillery shell that will materialize in mid-air before striking it. During these Subaraya events, the SCP-2954-2 instance will always destroy at least one of the satellite dish buildings, and various other explosions roughly equivalent to what would be expected from small vehicles being destroyed will also be seen as it fights back against the 2954-1B army. Eventually, the combined assault of the 1A and 1B forces will be enough to overwhelm the creature, and it will collapse, grow transparent, and eventually disappear completely. A disembodied cheer will be heard, presumably from the 1B army, and any damage to the environment, including the 1A buildings, will be reversed. But what is the cause of this endless cycle of destruction and restoration? Where do the creatures come from, and what do they want? And who is this invisible army that always stands ready to fight back against the rampaging monsters? The answers to those questions may have been discovered while exploring the area where the Subaraya events take place. There, in another small abandoned building, SCP Foundation agents discovered a trove of objects that may shed some light on just what these creatures are. The objects located include various movie posters, film reels, and documents that appear to be related to the production and distribution of motion pictures. The posters seem to depict creatures quite similar to the SCP-2954-2 instances, and the title of the poster, when translated from Japanese, reads Fuke-Ru's Assault. When agents viewed the footage of the film reels, they found that it depicted a scenario quite similar to the Subaraya events. Also of interest are a series of notes found within a filing cabinet inside of the building, with several being of particular notes. The first, when translated from Japanese, reads, Our sponsor gave 20 monsters to shoot. We'll pick the best footage. The second, which is dated to 1974, says, Filming complete. Don't forget, call our sponsor to say further shipments are unneeded. The third and fourth are both addressed to what may be the film's producers, and they read, Do you need more Fukeru? We can resupply until you're satisfied. And, You have not replied for a while. Regardless, we will send another shipment. Happy filming. But perhaps strangest of all is that there are multiple similar versions of the last note, and while the oldest is dated to 1972, additional instances continue to appear to this day, with new letters sporadically manifesting inside of the filing cabinets. The obvious danger that is caused by a rampaging 50-meter-tall monster is clear, and this anomaly has been classified as Euclid as a result. Though since the creature is inevitably always killed by the SCP-2954-1 forces, containment is instead focused on keeping the public away from the area. Guards have been stationed around the area to prevent civilians from entering during Subaraya events. And any members of the public who do manage to witness an event are to be administered Class A amnestics. What is the origin of these looping kaiju? Did someone attempt to harness an anomalous source in order to produce special effects for their film? If so, were they killed by their own creation before being able to turn it off, leading to a never-ending cycle of attacks? While we may never know the answer for sure, at least the result is entertaining, provided, of course, you keep your distance. Now go watch another entry from the files of Dr. Bob, like SCP-2860V.
Sophie, get in here and help with the dishes. Mom shouted from the kitchen. I rolled my eyes and I walked out of my room. The thought of dripping my hands in dirty dishwater made me shudder. I just got my nails done also. I was about to get my beauty sleep. Mom was fuming, but I was not going to back down. Whether you like it or not, you'll do the housework as long as you live here. You must follow my instructions. But without my attractiveness, I won't be able to afford the extra cash that comes from my brand endorsement contracts. I'm simply stating that this is sufficient assistance. Mom didn't open her lips to say anything, but I knew I had her there. What was the reason for her being able to purchase beautiful dresses and jewelry to flaunt in front of her snobby friends? She couldn't afford to offend me in any way. Hi, my name is Sophie. I know you don't like me so much right now, but if you watch till the end, you'll change your mind. We might even become besties. So please stick around. Also, if you want to watch more exciting videos like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Hey, look, it's Katie and Wayne. They're so cute together. My friend Gina pointed towards the cafeteria entrance. It was lunch break at school, and we just sat with our lunch trays. Close your mouth before you embarrass yourself. As Katie and Wayne made their way to our table, I tried my best to smile. Katie was one of my closest friends, and she had lately begun dating Wayne. Katie blew us kisses as she sat down. The kid she had been crushing on since junior high, looking as handsome as ever. Wayne waved goodbye and walked away. Gina's seat was practically vibrating. I still can't believe you ended your relationship with him. Was I meant to say no just because you had a crush on him? Wayne was the one who asked me out. Was I supposed to say no just because you have a crush on him? You've got a thing for Wayne. Gina shouted as several curious eyes turned our way a few tables away. Wayne smiled while his friends laughed. Wayne is not interested in you. If you say so. Just don't come to me crying when he dumps you. I said confidently. If only Carla knew how jealous I was of her. I wanted their relationship to end so badly. I didn't understand why he'd pick her over me. Katie, what the heck is this? Wayne looked furious as he handed Katie a cell phone. It was the weekend, and a bunch of us were hanging out by the lake. What store did you get this from? That's not who I am. I snatched Wayne's phone from her grip and held it up for everybody to see. Katie, that's you kissing Jeremy. Oh my God, no. No, it's not. I shouted loudly, if you must believe me, how do you explain this photograph? Look, there's Jeremy. Ask him, are you kissing my girlfriend? Wayne snatched Jeremy's shirt, and Jeremy surrendered by raising his arms. Calm down, dude. Yes, that's Katie and me at my house last weekend. She made no mention of being your girlfriend. You're a complete liar. I've never ever been to your house. Katie furiously wiped tears streaming down her face. You and I are done, Wayne said to her, then walked off. Just like that, Katie got dumped. She was humiliated in public as everyone laughed at her. Deep down, I was ecstatic, but I couldn't show it. Instead, I comforted her. Katie wasn't in a party mood anymore, so she asked to go home when we got back to her house. I lied and said that I forgot my phone at the lake. Truth is, I wanted to go back and see Wayne. If I was your girlfriend, I'd never do what Katie did. Wayne was sitting alone, throwing rocks into the lake. What do you want, Sophie? Jeez, I'll talk to you when you're in a better mood. I pretended to walk away. Sophie, wait. I smiled as I turned back toward him. The other day at lunch, is it true that you have a crush on me? It was almost too simple. Oh my God. This is the most humiliating thing I've ever done. Don't be ashamed of yourself. I have a soft spot for you as well. Of course he did. Him, as well as every other boy in the school. Wow, really? Why were you with Katie then? You'd never agree to go out with me, he said. Take a peek at you, for example. He gave an uneasy laugh. So Katie wasn't entirely blameless. It made me feel a little better about what I was to do about it, didn't I? I took a step closer to Wayne, who was wide-eyed, and kissed him without warning. How could you possibly do that? Katie entered the classroom and walked right up to me. I'm sorry, Katie. Wayne couldn't take his gaze away from me. After all, I'm the most beautiful girl in school. He's the man I'm dating. Now, I can't believe I was ever friends with you. You're the one who kissed Jeremy. You have nobody to blame but yourself. My friendship with Katie ended that day. A few days of hanging out with Wayne made me realize that they were extremely different. Wayne was a kind, polite, and smart guy. I, on the other hand, was known as the mean girl all around school. It was a title I had long accepted. My grades were average at best. Despite my teachers encouraging me to study, I never found the time. College was not in my future plans. I was going to be a professional model. As soon as I graduated high school, Sophie, I need to see you after class. Mrs. Keller, our history teacher, said as class ended, something was wrong. You got an F in the midterm exam. Yeah? So she looked up from her book, surprised at my tone. So, your beauty won't last forever. You need a college degree, and I'm not sure you'll get one with your current grades. Also an ugly attitude like yours. I doubt your beauty will do you any good. How about you keep your nose to the grindstone and mind your own business? What would you know about the subject of beauty? Young woman, you're my business as long as you're a student in my class, and I won't let you speak to me like that. I'm going to the principal about you. I gathered my belongings and exited the classroom. Sophie was crying outside the principal's office a few minutes later. What exactly is the problem? Principal Hells appeared to be concerned. I cried some more as I sniffed into a handkerchief. Sir, this is Mrs. Keller. She referred to me as ugly. As I sobbed, my shoulders trembled furiously. Please make your way inside my office. As we passed Mrs. Keller's desk, Sandra dialed Mrs. Keller's number and told his assistant. Minutes later, Mrs. Keller walked in. When she saw me in the state I was in, she immediately rushed to my side. Sophie, what's wrong? Get away from me! The surprised look on her face was priceless. Is it true that you called Sophie ugly? You know the rules of this school. What? No. I said she has an ugly attitude. I'd never call a student ugly. Sophie, please excuse us, Mrs. Keller. I need to talk privately. You don't want to miss lunch. I went straight to the washrooms and washed my face as I reapplied my makeup. I looked in the mirror and smiled. Then I went out to look for Wayne. Later that day, I learned that the principal had fired Mrs. Keller. Jeremy showed up in our class the following week. Since he was a junior, I was curious as to what he was doing there. Seeing him made me nervous because there are some things I haven't told you guys about. And you're about to find out now. Jeremy, Katie may or may not be pleased to see you. I cast a glance over to Katie and Gina, who were glaring at me and cutting me off. Sophie, you're well aware of what you've done. I'll tell Wayne if you don't. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Wayne, please request that he leave. He irritates me. Katie was not kissed by me. The photograph is a forgery. Why would you lie about anything like that? That's why I ended my relationship with Katie. My mind was racing. I needed to get Jeremy out of there before he ruined everything. Whether it was real or fake, it's too late to witness with me now. You can leave. Not before I show him this. Jeremy pulled out his phone and handed it to Wayne. This is the photo before I edited it. I didn't need to look. I already knew who was in the photo. It was me kissing Jeremy. I don't believe this. Wayne, I can explain. What? You saw me break up with Katie and you let it happen. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. Seeing you with her made me so jealous. I'm the pretty one. You were supposed to pick me, not her. And what's in it for you? Wayne was talking to Jeremy. Sophie paid me to edit the photo and send it to you. Everyone looked at me, waiting for me to deny it, But I couldn't because Jeremy was telling the truth. Why are you doing this? You promised not to tell. I wouldn't be able to do it. However, this time you managed to get my mother fired. My expression of surprise was genuine. Mrs. Keller, please accept my heartfelt greetings. Is your mother with you? Jeremy Keller is his name. Jeremy narrated to everyone as Katie stepped over to us and remarked, Duh. Is it possible that I lied to the principal? You're incredible. What's the matter with you? For the next few days, Wayne seemed repulsed at the sight of me. I was the center of attention at school. My friends abandoned me, and Wayne absolutely disregarded me. He was adamant about not having anything to do with me. One day I walked into the cafeteria and a folded piece of paper came flying towards me. It hit me, then landed on the floor. When I picked up the paper and opened it, I was horrified. It was the end of my examination results. I had failed terribly in a class of 60 houses, the only one not going to graduate. My life at school became unbearable. Graduation was coming up soon, and I watched all my classmates prepare for the day. Mom, I think I'm going to drop out of school. I told my mom one evening after another humiliating day at school. I told her about getting Mrs. Keller fired and what I did to Katie and Wayne. Sophie, dropping out of school is not the solution here. You're a smart girl. I'm certain if you work harder in your studies, you'll pass your final exams and join college. But no one likes me anymore. I'm miserable at school. Can you blame them? You're horrible to them. You need to make amends. How do I do that? How about you begin by admitting to the principal that you lied? I'll accompany you. After that, you must apologize to your pals. The principal was enraged. I would have been expelled if it hadn't been for my mother's pleadings. My second apology was to Jeremy, after learning that I had given the principal the truth. He informed me a few days later that his mother had returned to school. So, what are your thoughts? After all, aren't we friends? Next year, I'll be one of your classmates in your class. Sure, friends, maybe. By the way, after she got fired, Mom started offering private lessons to students with problems of various subjects. Maybe you can join the group. You'll greatly benefit from it. I can talk to her on your behalf if you're interested. I didn't understand how he could be so nice to me. Graduation day came and went. I tried to apologize to Katie and Wayne, but they wanted nothing to do with me during the break. Right before my second year being a senior, I began taking Mrs. Keller's private lessons, and my grades improved significantly. Mom's friend, a college professor, advised that I needed at least one activity to include in my college applications to make them stand out more. He wants me to wash dishes in a soup kitchen. I shuddered. Mom laughed. Why not? If it gets you into a good college, then do it. After a couple of days of searching, I settled on volunteering at a summer camp for young kids. Having a hard time at school, the kids and I were doing some hand paintings and having fun, when someone tapped my shoulder. Katie, what are you doing here? I'm here to speak to the kids as part of my college anti-bullying program. So, how about you? I couldn't help but assume that Katie's participation in an anti-bullying program was solely due to what I had put her through. I'm also here to help out. It's wonderful to see you again. Wayne has also arrived, Katie said as she drew a finger towards him. He's a college athlete who's had a lot of success. Now that I've contacted him, he's consented to speak with the kids as well. Let's go introduce ourselves. I wasn't sure Wayne would be pleased to see me, but I was pleasantly delighted when he did. Katie and Wayne were the first to address the children. Bullies can be defeated by becoming successful in life, and if they are harassing you at school, please report them to me. The kid smiled and laughed as he flashed his biceps. When my turn to address the kids came, it was an emotional moment for me. I told them my own story. For the longest time, I was the meanest girl in school. I would do anything to ensure no one got ahead of me at anything. I was a bad friend. I glanced at Katie and Wayne. I thought I was pretty. It made me better than everyone. I failed my exams and had to watch my friends graduate and go to college without me. By the time I finished my speech, I needed tissues to dry my eyes. Katie and Wayne joined me, and we hugged in front of the kids as they cheered. Sophie, look what came in the mail for you. Mom held out 2 envelopes. In just a minute, Mom. I've almost finished doing the dishes. Who are you, and what have you done with my daughter? Ha ha, funny. As they removed the envelopes from her, I murmured something. So from now on, it appears that you will be doing your own dishes. On what are you basing your decision? Why? Because you were recently accepted to 2 institutions. Best wishes, sweetie. I am incredibly proud of you. I'd never seen my mother so joyful in my life. That concludes my story for the time being. If you ring that notification bell, I might be able to take you to college with me.